Hello everybody, it's Gareth here from Paris Technologies, and today I'd like to share another video on our free payroll planning template. And today I'm going to focus on the back end, which is PowerQuery, and just explain how you can maintain it and how you could possibly customize it for yourself. All right, let's jump right in. All right, so here's our payroll planning template. And just to remind you, what we were trying to do here is we're going to share a workbook with our contributors, department heads, regional heads, and they're going to tell us what full-time equivalent they're going to have for the rest of the year and for next year. So quite simple. All they need to do is fill in what they expect people, if people are here or if they're not. And here's an example of some people leaving, and potentially if we did something like this, this will be, let's say, no FTE here. This will be somebody joining us next year. All right. So what's special to know about this in terms of PowerQuery? Well, first of all, it's an Excel table. And if I click on there, you'll notice it has a table name. This one's called Table Department 1. This is user-defined, and you can change it, but you're going to need to maintain it in PowerQuery. Secondly, I created some user-defined fields here. If you just leave them as they are and fill in your data, no problem at all. But if you want to create your own column heading, you're going to need to maintain it in all tables and in PowerQuery. All right, coming back to the main template. What do we need to know about here? Well, first of all, you can always refer to this tab here. How does it work? Explains how the tables are connected and explains a little bit about how PowerQuery is going to work. And also this instructions tab here, which kind of gives you a step-by-step process how to build this template. But also it has this very special line 8, which is the file path where you're going to store all these templates. Really important. And that's because we're going to use it as a variable in our PowerQuery. All right. How do we get into PowerQuery? Well, if you click on a table that has PowerQuery connected, you'll notice the query tab comes up on the ribbon. And you can jump in over here. You can also right click and go table, edit, and potentially you can go data, queries and connections and edit that way. All right. However you want to get in there, get into PowerQuery, and then it's going to look something like this. Here you see PowerQuery editor, and it's listing all the queries that are in this workbook. And you'll notice those ones that we can expect: Department 1, Department 2, Department 5. We click on that and just go to Advanced Editor. And this is probably the easiest way to maintain it. It looks a little daunting, but if you just read it, it's not that complicated. Here's a variable for the file path, where it's referring to my named range file path. And then it says the source is an Excel workbook with that file path, and it's called FTE Plan Department 1. If you change the file name, and perhaps you call it Department 1, version 2, or whatever, just come and maintain it here, and it's going to work, no problem. The second thing is it's going to get this table name from here. So if you change the table name, potentially you're going to want to maintain it. You probably don't need to maintain it here, but you can maintain it here, here, and here. It's fine. Then the next thing to notice is in this line where it changes the type, it actually lists out every column. And so unfortunately, if you make a change, this to say for user-defined 1, you're going to need to maintain it here. Otherwise, at this point, this query will fail. All right. So let's assume you've done that, and you've done it the same for the other 5. We get to the table all. This query is where it combines all those 5 into 1. The nice thing about this is if you look at the advanced editor, very simple. It just says combine, and it lists out the tables. So what that means is that if you had more departments, you could potentially just duplicate this. And as long as you were a little careful with this editor, gave it a new file name, gave it a new table name, and maintained that, it'll be fairly simple to come into this element here and just say, okay, we'll now combine another table by just making a comma and describing that table name. Pretty straightforward and simple. All right, once you've got all of your tables combined, the next query is going to make a full employee ID list and a full name. Again, you go into Advanced Editor. What it's doing is it's looking at that table all, Again, be careful because it's listing every single column name. So if you change a column name, you're going to have to maintain it in here. And then it's removing all the columns and just keeping the employee ID and the name. So very nice and simple. Basically a copy of the first table, but remove everything, keep employee ID and name. And this gives us some confidence that you're going to get exactly the same names and IDs as what's in the bigger list. And so it's really useful for making a lookup table. And finally, we've got the export query. Let's have a look at the advanced editor here. Again, it goes to the same table all. Again, it's got all of these listed out column names, so just being careful there. And then it's removing all the unnecessary columns. And what are these? These are the totals that you're not going to need because you can calculate them when you come to do reporting. And it's also the amounts and percentages and things like that that you use to do the calculations. But actually, they are just reference material and they're not needed for the final reporting. So it just gets rid of all of those. And then it's unpivoting some columns. And again, on this line, be careful because it has these user-defined names here as well. Again, just needs to be maintained, only needs to be maintained once. And then it's going to work perfectly. And what it says is unpivot everything except these. And then what you should be left with is just those columns. And then you will end up with, and you'll see it here. Sorry, so I'll just scroll too far. Something called attribute and the value in that attribute. And then here, this just renames that attribute to MN key. And you'll see what I mean by that. All right, let's cancel out here and just refer to the workbook itself again. So first step is you're going to combine all those tables. Second step, you're going to make this lookup columns. Then you're going to be able to add, just using normal Excel functionality, all of these data points that you may want to look up. And then finally, that is going to create this export table from here to here with this key and a value. And then you're going to be able to split out this month key, by the way. Then you'll be able to split out the key, the month, and then by looking up that key, you'll know what it is. It's the short name and the description. And with this data, so the value and these keys, you can do loads and loads of reporting. So really, really powerful. All right, and that's it. You can maintain that PowerQuery yourself, and you can build on this workbook as you would like. Thanks for watching.